Hello everyone, it's Raleigh and welcome back to the channel. So today, very strangely, I thought we're not going to be talking about elite specializations, but we're talking about elite specializations. So I want to kind of go through, I'm going to vent a little bit here for a few minutes. So if you guys don't like that stuff, you guys can skip ahead or whatever. But I'm going to vent a little bit because I'm not understanding really what the thought process is here for ArenaNet. So just to kind of review, we started out, once when Visions of Eternity was announced, we started talking about elite specializations, and I kind of, I talked about it how I understood that where they were coming from, right? Because the elite specializations are like a key component to what we do the whole time while we're playing Guild Wars, right? And so they're very important, and I get that, right? And we did the teasers, and we did, they put so much effort into all of that, right? Because they did the icon teasers, and they did the little like the the little card where you could like check mark things and whatever, right? Like they did all these different things, and then they did the reveals, and they did the streams, and they did all these different things about the elite specializations, right? They like did videos, all the stuff, okay? Blog posts, the whole 9 yards. And that was cool, right? Because I'm like, yeah, okay, that's going to be a big part of the expansion, and I get it, right? But then we moved on from that, and I was like, okay, we're moving on from that. We're talking about other things. We're talking about skimmer masteries. We're talking about rates and strikes. We're talking about the inquest. We're talking about map, right? Like those were the four subjects that over the last month have been kind of tackled, which is great, right? And in between that, they did an interview where they outlined a little bit of the feedback that they got from the elite specialization beta, and then they kind of outlined the changes that they're going to do, right? They didn't really go into much detail. And then now we're revisiting the whole thing. We're less than remember guys, we're less than 2 weeks away from the release of Visions of Eternity, and we know nothing about the story. We know nothing about the inquest. They released a couple of these teasers, right? And I'm not really gonna get into them because there wasn't a lot of detail. There wasn't anything revelating about anything inquest related, but they had these three teasers, including today they released another teaser talking about the inquest. The first one was the inquest in general, then it was Kuda, overseer Kuda, and then it was this guy called Sep, I guess, that's part of the inquest, and I think he's the guy that's in the trailer. But other than that, they didn't really give us any details. Okay, there's no details on any of it, and it's kind of frustrating. I'm gonna be honest with you guys because I've been trying to build hype and I've been trying to make videos. I mean, I'm very excited for Visions of Eternity. You guys can see that in the videos that I've been making, right? I did a stupid dance video, right? But I did that because there was nothing else to make videos about. Like, I don't know what to talk about because we don't know where the story's going. We don't know like what's really the entire narrative of the expansion. We know nothing, right? And like the end of Jantia Wilds didn't give us any insights into what's happening in Visions of Eternity either, right? So there's nothing we can really like theorize on. I gave you guys my theories. We talked about the maps. The whole map situation was such a mess, and we now know where Castora is, and I still think it's kind of weird. And I have my gripes with how they described it, and I kind of want to see. Like my thing is, I'm waiting to see how ArenaNet is going to spin this to fit what they've been like, this island that's been on the world map since forever, right? I want to see how they spin that into people thinking that it's been non-existent, or how people can't access it or whatever, right? So anyways, it's just been really frustrating to build hype because the elite specializations are right now the only thing that's carrying the hype for the expansion. Okay, and I get it, right? I get that they're a big part of the expansion, right? Like I said, I understand that, and I understand that a big part of the hype has to be built off of that. But we have today's blog post, which talks about the elite specialization, and we only have one more blog post that's potentially coming out. Whatever next week is coming out is going to be the last before the release. And so I really hope that they're not doing a giant, huge blog post talking about the inquest, talking about Castora, talking about the story, talking about the characters, all in one giant blog post next Wednesday, right? To build hype. Because I feel like that's a little too late, because that's 1 week before release. And just, you need to split that up. I really feel like what ArenaNet did wasn't very efficient in the way that they did any of the hype. Okay, I really feel like they started out really well, and then now we're kind of at the point where hype isn't really being built. Like, you go on any of the platforms and people aren't really talking about the expansion. They're not, because no one knows what to really talk about, right? Like, elite specializations, yeah, okay, we had a beta, we had all this stuff, but no one knows really what to talk about. And that's something that I've kind of voiced, right? My frustration is that, I'm a lore content creator and there's no lore to talk about for me, right? I've done theories completely baseless. Half of them were completely baseless, the theories that I've done, that I did. So it's a little frustrating, and I'm kind of like, okay, let's talk about elite specializations. I still want to make videos. This is not anything against ArenaNet. This is nothing against, but I just think that this should have been managed better, because even if we get something next week, blog post wise, then that gives us information. I think it's a little late. And if we're not getting anything about the story and the characters and the narrative and the lore and all of that stuff next week, and we have nothing for the release of Visions of Eternity. So and the reason I want to kind of address this is because there were some people in the community that did leave some comments, and they weren't like mean comments or anything. Like, you guys know that I'm not like that, right? Like, I can take criticism, and I totally understand we all have our own opinions about things, and so I totally get it. But there were some people that were saying, like, yeah, well, maybe Arena is trying a new approach where they're going into the elite specialized, or well, I have elite specializations on my mind. No, where they're going into the expansion with just a different approach, where they're not giving us all these details, and we're gonna have to find out about it as we go in. Okay, and I get that, right? I'm like, okay, I understand that, but they needed to do more teasers if they're gonna do that, right? So I know that the last 3 days, we've gotten teasers about the Inquest and stuff like that, but they're like, we needed something like this throughout all of the weeks, where they kind of gave us teasers about, like I said, the raid encounters and different parts of the map or something. Like, they should have done a concept art of the first map and just kind of give us a short description. If you guys remember, for example, like way back when Guild Wars 2 first came out, anytime you loaded into a new map, you would have a little description of what the map is all about on the bottom, and they got rid of that. I don't know why they got rid of it. I kind of actually like that, because it's kind of it kind of puts you, it's a little, like, it gives you a little bit of immersion, where you're like, okay, this is what I'm getting myself into. Kind of, it's like this preview of like, oh, this is what I get to expect here, right? It takes a little bit of the wander away, because you know a little bit as you go into the map or whatever. But I actually kind of like that, because it's like these details that you might not immediately realize or whatever, right? But they could have done something like that. They could have done a concept art of the maps or something, and then they could have given us a short explanation, like a short description of it or something, right? They could have maybe given us a character of like why this character is in the story or why it's coming back, like all these things, right? But now they're focusing on Inquest, so I really thought that we're gonna get an Inquest focused blog post, and we're not. So that's kind of my vent session. I know this was like 8 minutes of me venting, but we also reviewed a little bit, so it's not completely just me venting. But yeah, it's just been a little frustrating. So anyways, we're talking about elite specializations again today. I think they're going to go into a little bit more details. So what I've done is I've actually pulled up the wiki on these elites, on the elite specializations, because they're talking about very specific, and the last time when I reviewed the interview with PC Gamer, with Phil Savage, the thing was that I didn't pull, like, I didn't have the elite specializations up. So whenever they talked about a trade and stuff, I was like, I don't know really what that does, right? But the thing is that, when they were doing an interview, most people didn't know what the trade names were anyways, and specifically Phil Savage probably didn't know, like, each name of the... So they kind of described what each thing did. In this blog post, I don't think they're going to describe any of the specific trades and stuff. So I have pulled up the wiki page, which again, the wiki does such a fantastic job, but they have all the details on there. So we're going to look at it. Let's do that real quick. Let's pull it up. I still have my little kitty cat here. It is still Halloween, so I kind of have that frame up. But yeah, so I kind of, and I didn't do that last time, but I kind of upped the, because usually you guys see it like this, and that's kind of small, so I kind of pulled it up a little bit, and we can look at it this way. We're going to read it, and as they kind of mention these specific traits and stuff, I have them all pulled up here. You guys can't see it, but like at the top I have all 9 elite specializations pulled up. So as they're going through all of this stuff, we're going to be looking at them, and we're going to look at exactly what they did on the wiki and then see how they're changing it, right? So to kind of make it easy. But anyways, Guild Wars 2 Visions of Eternity update, elite specializations beta feedback. All right. Greetings, adventurers. Back in August, we ran a beta event to test and collect feedback regarding our 9 new elite specializations that make their debut when Visions of Eternity launches on October 28th. Today, we're going to go over the feedback we received and what changes we're making to each elite specialization for launch. Okay, so while I want to kind of stop here, and I want to kind of reiterate what I said earlier. So, while I was frustrated earlier and vented a little bit, I do like that we're getting feedback. Do not take this the wrong way. I love this, and I love that we're getting double feedback as well, which totally is fine. I just wish that we would have gotten this like weeks ago, and we kind of moved, because like I said, we moved on from the elite specializations, but now 2 weeks before we're kind of revisiting. So what I'm trying to say is that I love the feedback. I just think that maybe this is not, I don't know. I just think that if there had been other stuff, I wouldn't be as frustrated with this, because I love this. I absolutely love that they're giving us feedback on the feedback that we gave them. This is exactly what I'm looking for, so that we know what to expect, and that we know what the feedback is that ArenaNet kind of took from us, so that we also know that in the future, when they do something like this, we know what feedback to give them, because we know what kind of stuff they listen to, right? Like, to kind of, you know, I like that a lot. So, anyways, this blog will outline what we feel are the most impactful changes at a broad level. The full list of changes will be detailed in the expansion release notes. To kick things off, we received feedback during the beta that some of the Elite Specialization's emblems didn't represent mechanics and themes as they were presented. To better align the art and design, we'll be updating the icons for the Antiquary and Luminary during our first major update to the expansion early next year. Oh, okay. Oh, that's kind of cool. That's the first time ever that's happened, you guys. So the Antiquary, which is the thief, had the cards, and a lot of people were frustrated with that because it had nothing to do with cards, so people didn't like that. I wonder what they're going to choose. You guys think they're going to have a little script or something? And then Luminary. It's weird that they pick those two. Because like I'm thinking, you know, if we're looking at specifically what what represents what in that sense, right? I think like the Necro, for example, having like a dagger and being a ritualist, like that's kind of doesn't really fit. You know, I'd rather have something like some kind of spirit or something as the icon. But anyways, I just like that we're actually that this is something that they're tackling. That's very interesting. All right, so they're going to go into details first. First, the amalgam. Feedback regarding the amalgam landed in a solid state for the beta. Along with some balance tuning, amalgam is receiving a new Grandmaster trait, replacing contagious mutation. All right, let's pull up amalgam here, because I don't know what any of these are. Okay, so contagious mutation. Strain enhancement effects are shared to nearby allies when activated with a reduced duration. So the strain thing was I don't know what the strain is. Each morph skill possesses an activation effect and a strain feature. So that is from these guys. It doesn't actually talk about that in here. So it's just the morph skills have like a strain thing. And that's shared with reduced duration. So, and that's right, yeah. So, which shared strain bonuses to allies. Okay, so they do explain that a little bit. Contagious mutation was a niche trait compared to its neighbors, and its existence limited the effects we could put on strains, as we had to consider them being given to allies. Contagious mutations removal allows us to keep strains strong and interesting, while also making room for a new Grandmaster that can open up a new role for amalgam. The new Grandmaster trait, New Genes, provides boons to allies when a morph skill is used, as well as an additional boon based on which specific morph skill was used. In PvE, the generic boon will be Alacrity, allowing the amalgam to mold into a more supportive playstyle. With these gameplay changes, as well as some visual effect updates, it's never been a better time to slime. Okay, Interesting. So they changed that. Let me go back to that. I don't really. The thing was that I guess there was a way for Amalgam to create this. They could do both. Whatchamacallit? They could create both alacrity and quickness like builds, like where they have both or whatever, like permanently. And I guess this was based off of this. I'm thinking. I don't know really. Like I said, I'm not an engineer player, so I didn't really know how that. I love how this says just evolve. But yeah. Anyways, so I guess that's what it's kind of based off of, is the idea that I guess one of these protocols gave you like the ability to do both of those, and so they're kind of fixing that by specifically saying like, hey, in PvE we're gonna give you alacrity automatically based on this. So this is gonna go away, and we're gonna get new genes in there, which means that you can still do like a supportive style here by giving out boons and stuff depending on which one you use. So that's kind of cool. You can kind of build around which boons you need for your build specifically. But it's not going to be as strong because they want to keep the strain effects really strong, but they want them to just be on you. And then, yeah, so that's kind of nice. I like it. It sounds like they thought that through, right? So that's, and again, Amalgam was one of those that performed really well. So it's cool to see that only they're really looking at like one master trait, and then I guess some visuals too. They're doing some visual changes, visual updates. So I don't know what that means. They're not going really into detail, but a lot of people were talking about how they would like to see more of the actual slime effect. Where like one person actually had a really cool idea where if you're idle, you see sometimes like a slot, like an ooze coming out of you, right? Because they talked about like how this is based off of like ooze and stuff, and like some people were kind of missing the actual oozing part of it, right? Yes, we use the mercurial mold and to mold it into like different weapons and stuff, but there's no like drippage and there's no like oozing. Like oozing in the name itself, right? Is in the name itself. So maybe that's what they're kind of doing there. I'm guessing, right? So antiquary. So this icon is gonna go bye bye. Again, I'm thinking maybe we're gonna get something like this. Like we're gonna get this like little sack or something as the like little treasure sack or something as the icon. Maybe it's gonna be a Coinbase like icon. I'm guessing. I get the cards thing really didn't fit, right? And we tried to make it fit with the Rare Collections icon. We kind of talked about that a little bit, but yeah, I think that's a good idea. So. We've taken steps to reduce the amount of guesswork required while playing as the Antiquary. For starters, we've made the split deck trait a baseline mechanic when the elite specialization is equipped. You will now always obtain one offensive and one defensive artifact whenever you pilfer, regardless of the traits you have equipped. So they talked about this in the interview with PC Gamer. They talked about exactly that. They wanted to make a split deck the baseline. So for those of you that don't know what and it's somewhere we can look at it immediately. So we can look at it right now. So split deck right here. Whenever you pilfer, you get guaranteed, because before you didn't know what you would get. You would get one of, I think there was like 8, right? And so it was like you could get any of the 8, whether they were offensive or defensive, and it was super random. So you could get 2 defensive artifacts or 2 offensive artifacts, and then split deck made it so that you would definitely get 1 offensive and definitely 1 defensive, and then I'll change that, which is great. I think that's a good change. All artifacts now additionally give unique temporary passive effects to the Antiquary after activation, allowing for additional strategic choices even after the corresponding artifact has been used. As an example, using Metal Leeching a Tar grants an effect that allows the Antiquary to use sneak attacks for a short period of time, even when not in stealth. Interesting. So they're expanding on, again, I'm trying to find it. There it is. Jesus. So the artifacts themselves just kind of did their thing and then they were over with. right? They like were like a one-time effect. So right here, you know, they talked about the Metal Legion guitar. So let's talk about that for a second. So rock out with your guitar, damaging and applying conditions to opponents around you, then slam the ground, damaging and stunning opponents in the area. So it's an effect where you play the guitar, you slam it on the ground, and boom, you're done, right? But now you get these effects afterwards that actually have like that allow you to do different things. And it's not just boons, right? They're talking about how there's temporary passive effects. These aren't boons that they grant you, but these are different passive effects. So that's really cool that now you can use the Metal Legion guitar, and then because I think one of the issues, and I think that's why they specifically highlighted here, is that Antiquary, the base Antiquary, if you just take Antiquary, there wasn't that much access to stealth, right? Like there wasn't really any way, like if you take all Antiquary skills, you didn't really have any access to stealth. And I think they're trying to kind of fix that a little bit. So now you don't need stealth because you can use sneak attacks for a period of time even when you're not in stealth, meaning that your core attacks now, you're not in stealth, but you're using sneak attacks still, right? Which is the ambush skills. I don't know why they call it sneak attacks here, but the ambush skills. It lets you use ambush skills even while not. So that makes Metal Legion guitar like a really good skill, I think, because those ambush skills are actually really good. Some of them are really, really strong. And there's a reason for that because you're not in stealth all the time, but I don't, for a short period of time, I'm guessing it's only a few seconds, right? It's probably only like 3 seconds or something, because if you have that for a long period of time, then that would be super broken. But yeah, so I think that's a great change. Trades have also been reworked. Split Deck has been replaced with Repeat Ransacker, which reduces the recharge of Script Swipe whenever you use an artifact. Possessive Order, so Split Deck right over here will be replaced by this skill. Okay, so because this is baseline, so they created a new trait there. Possessive Hoarder has had its boons altered and now grants its effects to allies around you as well. Has had its boons altered. What are they? A Possessive Hoarder. Artifacts grant barrier and boons when used. Do we know exactly what boons? The offensive one gave resistance, the defensive one gave stability. Okay. Okay, so they changed it. I'm guessing these are probably, and I don't know, but I'm guessing these are probably going to be like something like quickness and alacrity or something like that. Maybe, I don't know why they changed that specifically, but maybe something like that. I don't know, because resistance and stability are both really good boons to have on there. So I don't know, the boons have been altered and now grant its effects to allies around you as well. So I'm thinking, because they want to have every elite specialization have access to like either alacrity or quickness. So I feel like that's where that's going to come in, is through Possessive Hoarder, because that's like the supportive trait. So I feel like that's probably where they're going, I'm thinking. Lastly, double edge skill icons now have a different appearance whenever they can be used while on cooldown, to differentiate them from regular cooldown skills. So that was a feedback that people had. So when you press that button, it didn't actually change the icon. Once you use the double edge skill, it didn't actually change the icon of double edge skill to let you know that you can use it again. So now they're doing that. Some people were saying like just give it like a red outline, or like a red just like a hue over it or something. But I don't know. So I guess they changed that. Do you guys think this is enough for Antiquary? Do you guys think this is enough to make that viable? I don't, like I said, I just, in concept, I'm just not a fan of the, like, randomness of it. Really, like, just, it's whatever. Like, I get the appeal of Skirt, but I feel like, the thing is, a lot of people, I feel like the one thing that a lot of people kind of miss is that, like, yeah, the script is a part of the elite specialization, and it's all fun and comedic and whatever, but that appeal goes away really quickly, right? Like, that is not going to be the main focus of when you're playing that, right? So, you know, think about to the point where, like, you're just using the Antiquary and you're not thinking about that you have, like, you're in combat and, oh yeah, cool, having script is all that, but is this going to be enough to really make you want to take this into raids and strikes where you have to focus on the stuff that's happening? Or would you have liked to seen more changes to it? For me, I guess it's really about the core of what Antiquary is wasn't really interesting. So, it's just not for me, which is totally fine. But if there's people out there that like it, I'm very happy for them. So next, Conduit. Conduit, like, and we've talked about it a little bit. Conduit, I'm very, like, I want to love Conduit. I really, really do. I tell you guys, yesterday I sat for about 2 hours, and it's crazy because back in the day I used to have 3 Revenants, and over the years I've kind of deleted some of them, whatever, and I kept the oldest one that I've had, and actually not. I did not keep the oldest one. I kept the second one. I didn't keep the oldest one that I had. Because way back when Fractals first came out, I was maining a Revenant. Or not when Fractals came out. When Revenant first came out, when Heart of Thorns came out, I was maining a Revenant for a short period of time. Because I really, obviously the lore and stuff, it was like really cool to me. And like I was maining a Revenant at the time. For a while. And I really, really liked it. And then I kind of felt like out of love with it. And ever since then, I've been really wanting to get back into it. So last night, I actually made like a Dark Knight looking kind of character. And I'm using like Greatsword. Because you guys know, I'm not a fan of Greatsword. But I think that Revenant has like a good Greatsword. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to try to play Greatsword. I'm going to try to play Revenant. I'm going to try to like played like that, and I've been having a good time. I've been playing Vindicator, and I still love the little jump mechanic, like the dodge. Like I think it was one of the things that I really, really loved about End of Dragons and stuff, that they had that. But so I'm trying to get into it, right? And I'm hoping that Conduit is gonna really give me that opportunity to really love Revenant. So the majority of the feedback on Conduit gameplay revolved around the Conduit's profession mechanics and bonuses being too passive. That was indeed something that we kind of talked about. Specifically, not just that the mechanics and bonuses were too passive, but the traits themselves, right? The traits were like, oh yeah, if you're in this, you get an extra stat increase, right? And it's like, oh man, that's so boring, As a result, we've made several changes to this elite specialization to make it more rewarding to players who wish to play the Conduit more proactively. Okay. All right. So Cosmic Wisdom has been moved to the F3 slot. So Cosmic Wisdom was the like transform kind of thing, right? And their effects have been altered to provide bonuses specifically for the legend that each form represents. As an example, form of the Assassin, which is if you have Shiro, right, now fires lesser enchanted daggers at enemies close to you whenever you use a legendary assassin skill or while channeling impossible odds. Oh, I like that. Okay, so enchanted daggers, just so you guys know what enchanted daggers are, and we're going to kind of look at this. So we have the assassin form, invoke the powers of an assassin, gaining bonus power and ferocity. Inflict random debilitating conditions whenever you strike an enemy. So I guess that is, I don't know if these bonus power and ferocity, I'm guessing those are staying, but these random debilitating conditions. So rather than just having random things just happen, they want actually like visually something. So the enchanted daggers are actually and I want to kind of see if I'm correct on that. Enchanted daggers. Yeah, so enchanted daggers are the healing skill, right? We actually have enchanted daggers in Guild Wars 1 as well. But it's the healing skill, right? So you summon these enchanted daggers, okay? And they're like the little green things. And anytime you attack, they kind of like fly at the enemy, right? And so that is what they gave to the form, right? So when you're in the form, you now fire lesser enchanted daggers, which means that you actually heal yourself. Those are like the enchanted daggers heal you. So this should be like more healing. So there's more sustain there too. And this is whenever you use a legendary assassin skill or while channeling impossible odds. Impossible odds, remember, is the one that you channel where any strike you do does another strike right after, like a second attack or whatever. So that's really cool. I really like that. That's a great change. I think that makes it much more appealing visually and also more interesting, like mechanic-wise. It's not as boring. Invoking a different legend will now automatically switch your form to match the new legend. So that was one of the things that a lot of people were like, is this a bug? Because I can be in one thing and then swap my legend to something else and still be in the first thing, and that was kind of weird. Ensuring that you'll always be able to make use of the new functionality of Cosmic Wisdom, even when moving to a different legend. Okay. In place of Cosmic Wisdom, Release Potential has been added to the F2 slot. These are a set of skills that are ultimately equipped, automatically equipped depending on your active legend. So players will have access to two different Release Potential skills based on the legends you bring to combat. Okay, so it gives me pretty much a new thing based on which legend I'm in. I get a new skill. Okay, and you can have two because you can be two legends at the same time, so I get two skills there as I swap. Certain so you have access to different based on the legend you bring to combat. Certain aspects of these skills will scale based on the amount of affinity you have built up, encouraging the use of other legendary skills before this one to obtain the maximum effect. Okay, because remember, you build up affinity by using other like legendary skills and stuff. For example, Release Potential Assassins, we're still talking about Shiro, being in Shiro, is an attack that sends out 3 increasingly large shockwaves from yourself that damage enemies and immobilize those that are struck by all 3 waves, which increase damage and greater immobilized duration depending on how much affinity you have accumulated. So I like it. It's a much more active and much more visually impressive. There's a lot more going on there. I like that. I like that a lot. I kind of wish they would have gone into like some other ones. But that's so we kind of get an outline of how Legendary Assassin kind of works now. And I like that. That's actually not a bad that's not bad. I like it. A lot of people were kind of talking about the duration of Cosmic Wisdom, which I agree. I wish it would last longer. Because then it kind of feels like you have to take that Grandmaster trait that has it like permanently unlocked or whatever, right? So I don't know, but yeah, I don't know how this. It's kind of hard for me to like imagine because I feel like you have to kind of play it. For me specifically, I kind of have to play it in order to really understand what it's about. So I don't know. How do you guys feel about this? I feel like this is more attractive to me. This looks more attractive to me. This looks more like, yeah, you know what? I can get on board with this. Like, yeah, I could play this, and this might be interesting. Depending on what the other legends do as well, right? Like, we don't really know. There's so, there's like 4 other legends that we can do, right? And we don't know what the other ones do. But I'm guessing like, maybe there's something to do with like you get like hammers for duration on the Chalice one, right? So instead of just having like the 3 hammers, you get like another like additional hammers or something, and you have like all these hammers floating around you or something, right? And with Ventari, you could have like they used to have, they don't have it anymore, right? Where the shards would come out of the tablet. Maybe they have those come out again. Maybe they were bringing those back, the little shards of the tablet that you could collect for bonuses and stuff. Maybe they'll have those come back. I don't know, but there's a lot of interesting things they could do visually, and I kind of like that they're using something because there's nothing visually really that set Conduit apart from Core. Really, like, so if you're using 2 legends that you were already using, like let's say I'm Conduit and I'm channeling Ventari and Shiro, right? And those are my 2 legends. There was nothing visually that would indicate that I'm even a Conduit, right? Like that was really nothing that would indicate that. But now this kind of changes based on these things, right? On these changes that they've made. So I like it. All right, Evoker. Okay, well, we'll really see here because I'm kind of curious to see. A big point of feedback was that the Evoker trade line tried to do too many things. The element-themed trades were flavorful and helped to further define the playstyle of each familiar, but they took up a lot of space that could be used for other things, like addressing the lack of support boons. We still like what most of these trades brought to each of the familiars, so we've decided to make them passive bonuses tied to each familiar. Oh, interesting. So oh, interesting. That's seems like a big thing. So I'm guessing right here, so for example, Electric Enchantment, I'm guessing is probably like baseline for the hair now, where your next strike creates an arc chain of lightning, maybe that's like baseline now. that one I thought was kind of boring. I'm trying to like re-enter after using a familiar skill. Temporary bonus, okay. I wonder which ones they kind of took out when you use a familiar skill. I mean, remove a condition when you use a familiar skill and grant them boons. Is that automatically baseline now? Like all of these baseline? That'd be kind of crazy, right? That's the okay. For example, while you're accompanied by the otter, you will always heal allies when you grant them regeneration. So was that um something that remove conditions from energy kind of moves when you use a familiar skill? Heal yourself when you use a familiar skill. Right here. Grant regenerative as when you dodge, heal allies when you grant them healing is increased if you have the otter. So I guess this is baseline now. But then is the healing increase when if you have otter? Is that baseline as well? Or is it just this part of it that is now baseline, and then what about the rest? You know what I mean? Like I'm kind of wondering like how far of like are we taking all of these passives and adding them on? I don't know. But interesting. As we mentioned in the preview stream for the Evoker, we suspected that the utility skill bonuses could be more than a stun break, and the majority of the feedback we saw agreed, so we went ahead with some improvements to those. Okay. We also saw a ton of feedback asking for the ability to enable auto attack from familiar skills. Our initial investigation felt that this would require complex technical change, and we need more time to ensure quality and stability. But rest assured that that's a high priority for the team, and we'll release it as soon as it's ready. Okay, so that's auto attack is going to be something that they want to do, but they tried to make that happen, and it's a complex technical change that's going to take more time to do. So with the release of Visions of Eternity, we will not have auto attack for the familiar skills. What do you guys think about the changes there? Do you guys think that that is enough? My question is here. They were so nice to kind of talk about what they're replacing it with, right? They went with like, oh, split deck is not going to be, replaced by this. We're getting rid of a ton of traits with this. And I'm guessing they're probably going to combine some traits. So they're creating a whole new other traits. What trait, like, what are we getting instead of some of these, right? Like, you're talking about the traits are going to be baseline, going to be added automatically all the time. Cool, but what are we getting instead? Right? Are you just taking this line out of this trait, and then are you taking that specific line out of it and leaving the trait as is? Because that would be kind of silly then, right? So I don't know. I'm kind of worried about this a little bit. Like it sounds like Evoker is not going to get really. I don't know. A lot of people liked Evoker, so maybe I shouldn't be worried because a lot of people really liked it. So maybe that's fine the way it is. So there you go. That's that. All right. Gale Shot. Now Gale Shot was really good, performed really well. And I think most people were kind of fine with what was going on. So we'll have to see here. Gale Shot aimed high-end shot true over the beta week. There's always room for improvement. So here's a bird's eye view of the. Wow. Okay. Really? Are we gonna do all just Ranger related puns here? This is crazy. And like couple of sentences we have one has one sentence has one in each of them. Anyways, the largest change will be to Gale Shot's arrow generation. Gaining arrows was largely a passive experience, and there weren't enough options to add arrow generation to your build. Okay, in the beta we saw that in PvE most of the Gale Shot's strength came from triggering the Shrike Grandmaster trait rapidly. So let me look at that again because I know that I messed some of that stuff up the last time we talked about this. So the Shrike, after a number of missiles, release a volley of arrows at your target and gain an arrow. Okay. Yeah, there was multiple ways because Hawkeye was the same kind of thing. It was like a hail of arrow. After Hawkeye becomes available when 5 stacks of wind force are applied. So it was kind of like Shrike was like almost the same thing as Hawkeye in a way. But a lot of people used Shrike, and Shrike were like Shrike. I heard people talking about like Shrike is like the ultimate, like everyone was like, no, you gotta use Shrike. Like Shrike is really really good. So I'm trying to see what let's read about it. We're happy to see Galeshot rewards of projectile focused builds we saw utilizing Shrike, but we want to make sure playstyles built around the other Grandmasters are also viable. Shrike's arrow generating capabilities are going to be lowered, and Squall skills will now generate arrows on use. This will help the Grandmaster trades stay in parity with each other while also making arrow generation a more active process. Okay, so there. How many arrows did you gain from it? And gain an arrow. Missiles hits required 8, and then you gain 1 arrow. So strikes generating are going to be lowered. How? By how do you lower that? From 1 to 0? Because it has 1 right now. You gain 1 arrow from this. So do you need, for Shrike, do you need more than 8 missiles, maybe? Are they going to increase the number here? Missiles required to actually activate Shrike? Because a lot of people were using Shrike, right, over the others, because I guess the others weren't as good. Cloudburst reset the cooldown of Bluster when used Bluster or Hawkeye grants boons to nearby allies. What boons did it grant? Quickness. So that's the quickness sharing thing. I actually liked using that. Gale Force. Wind Force grants stacking, increased movement speed, and damage. When you use Hawkeye, convert these into a stronger bonus for a duration. I actually like these, but I guess we're getting arrow generation on these. So probably when you use Buster and Hawkeye, you grant boons as well as gain an arrow. I'm guessing is how they're changing that. And then maybe anytime you use Hawkeye, you gain an arrow. I'm guessing is what's happening here. But again, they're not really going into detail there, but it's interesting to see. That was one thing I will say, that's something that I talked about way early on when I played Galeshot, when we talked about Galeshot, like all these things. One thing that always stood out to me was that there was nothing that really generated arrows that much, and like it was just this passive thing, like this whatever, this bar you would have to watch and wait until it like goes up higher, right? Like I don't know. So it was a little bit like, oh, okay, whatever. But I like it. I mean, oh, so I guess, okay, I guess I misread this, because I thought that they're gonna add like arrow generating capabilities to the other Grandmasters, but it's actually gonna be put to the Squall skills. Will now grant arrows unused. I like the Squall skills, so I got that wrong a little bit, but the Squall skills are actually really good. I actually like them a lot, because I talked about it. We don't really use wind magic in the game, and I really like that that the ranger is getting wind magic. That, to me, that's really cool. I really like that idea, so I'm okay with that for sure. Additionally, Fetch, the master trait that also aided in arrow generation. Let's look at that. Fetch, restore arrows when you swap pets. Okay. Is being reworked to Thrill of the Catch, granting an arrow when you or your pet disable an enemy. Oh, okay. So that's very specific though, because not every pet has disable abilities, right? So whatever disable has, like you would only use that trait if you or your pet have abilities that disable an enemy, which would be good for like Hammer skills. I think Hammer has some disables on there, some dazes and stuff like that. So some stuns and stuff, knockdowns maybe. So that would be kind of, I guess that kind of works for that. Squall skills will also see usability changes, such as Whirlwind. Let's look at Whirlwind. Okay, Whirlwind right here. Launch yourself forward with powerful gust of wind. With a powerful gust of wind. Breaking Stun. Perfect Storm, being castable while moving. Perfect Storm. Let's look at Perfect Storm here. Perfect Storm. Release a massive tornado, launching enemies. So it was rooting you in place, which kind of sucks when tornado reaches. Yeah, so that one was really, really cool. I really like that one. So I'm excited that we can use that while moving. That's really good. And Mistral becoming a dome. A dome. Mistral becoming a dome. Summon a current of chilling northern air. Projectiles that pass through. Oh, it was the line that you put, but instead it's a dome. Oh, that's really cool. Become frozen, chilling, and dealing additional damage to enemies. I like that. That's really cool because I don't know. I like that. That's a really good change. Not something I would have thought that they would do, but that's a great change because before it was just like this barrier that you'd put out, and anything you'd fire through it would become this like chilling projectile. But now they're doing a dome. That's cool. I like that a lot. That's a great change. They should do that. You know what they should do that too as well is the skill on the. This is just like a little feedback from someone that barely even plays that, but Druid, the staff. Or not Druid anymore, but Ranger, the staff, right? I think it's the 4 or 5 skill. I want to say it's the 4th skill that creates a little barrier, and you shoot through it, and it becomes these like an enemy. If an enemy shoots through it, it becomes like healing for yourself. I wish that was a dome as well, or something, or bigger, or something. I don't know. But anyways, in competitive modes only, Quarry's Peril and Peld will grant 2 win force stacks to make it easier to access Hawkeye. Quarry's Peril. Is that an ability? Pelt. Oh, Quarry's Peril and Pelt, which can be changed, right? Based on if you're using right here. Quarry's Peril is replaced by Pelt. So Quarry's Peril fires a volley of arrows into the air, immobilizing enemies when they land, and fire a volley of arrows into when they land, right? But it's has like 2. It has like 2 charges or something. Yeah, it has like 2 charges, and I guess it's now gonna generate 2 win force instead of just 1. Okay. Lastly, the Cyclone Bow will now remember when it's been set to auto attack. Awesome, great. Just a quality of life change there, like that. Be sure to keep an eye out for a new pet to encounter in Story that works with Galeshot's Flock Together trait. Ooh, a little preview here. Flock Together trait. Avian pets have increased strike damage and health. B skills. Okay, so it's an avian pet. It's an avian pet. We're getting some kind of bird. I'm still hoping for an owl pet. A new owl pet. I want like a new owl pet. I would be so happy with that. But it's probably going to be something completely new, which is fine. But so it's going to be some kind of bird pet that we're getting. And I guess we're only getting 1 pet. We're getting 1 pet with, I'm guessing we're going to get 1 pet now, and then probably like with the new map or something, we're going to get another pet. I'm hoping at least, right? So anyways, moving on. What do you guys think? Is this good enough for Galeshot to be competitive? Like, or is this great changes that you not competitive? It's obviously going to be competitive. It's performing really well. But I'm saying, do you guys like the changes here? Do you guys like the changes for Galeshot? And are you happy with how they're kind of moving stuff around? It looks like they're not doing anything crazy, but it's kind of cool because it looks to me like they're happy with the core of what Galeshot is, and then now they're kind of adjusting it to make it fit a little bit more of what they were envisioning for it, and based on the feedback, right? And that's kind of cool that they can make those changes. So, all right, Luminary. While reviewing the Luminary feedback, we saw a few of the same points being repeated consistently. The lack of Luminary-specific virtues, the penalty for using too many Radiant weapons, and the low impact of the weapons themselves are the main issues we're addressing. Okay, so none of the things that I kind of pointed out, which is whatever. I know that my changes, again, and I kind of called a little bit of bullshit on what they talked about beforehand, right? Where they said that, oh yeah, if in elite specialization, like something like none of the things are hitting, then it's a big problem where you need to look at like revising like all of this and kind of redoing all of it. But which I think was what I've seen a lot of people talk about. I on stream looked through a lot of the feedback with you guys, and I read a lot of the feedback, and I gave my own feedback, and I think a lot of people were kind of like, man, this is really not how, like, there's so many different ways that they could do this. But anyways, and again, I want to talk about how visually so far the only one, or there's actually been two. So there's visual changes in the amalgam, and there's going to be visual changes in the conduit. Okay. But other than that, visually they haven't talked about anything like that, right? Like I said, one of the things WindForce needs to not be in my boon bar. There needs to be some kind of visual indicator on how much WindForce I've built up that isn't just locked to, and they didn't address any of that. So again, I don't know if I'm like by myself on this, and that's a hill I guess I'm dying by myself on, but you know, you want to make these visually impressive. I think one of the reasons why many of the Path of Fire elite specializations were so impressive back then when they came out. Now everything's kind of like smudged together and it's been a long time, but back then they were so, everyone wanted to pick Path of Fire elite specializations over the Heart of Thorns, and this is back then. Now, like I said, now things have kind of changed and whatever, you know, but back then everyone wanted that because they were also visually impressive. They all had like these grand visuals and all these crazy things, you know, and we're not really getting that with these elite specializations. I'm really like, WindForce needs to have some kind of thing there. But anyways, we've introduced a set of Radiant Virtues to replace the core Guardian Virtues. We still wanted to capture some of the feeling of core virtues with shorter cooldowns and instant effects, but they will bring a bit more to the table. Each of the virtues will also power up the next usage of the respective Radiant weapon, with Virtue of Justice empowering the hammer, Virtue of Resolve empowering the staff, and Virtue of Courage empowering the sword and shield. Okay, our initial goal, so I guess the virtues are changing visually, and then also in the sense that they empower each of the weapons that they're kind of like designed after, right? In the sense of like mechanics, like how they function, damage, condition, or damage, healing, and supportive, and then like a defensive kind of thing, right? Our initial goal with the shrouds and recharge time, which scaled with the number of weapons used, had been to create more flexibility to dip in for a single radiant weapon. For example, using the shield to block an attack and then immediately exiting with a shorter cooldown. It became clear that scaling past the typical recharge time, this incentivized interacting with the shroud too much and felt like a significant penalty beyond our original intent. We've reduced the maximum recharge time to 10 seconds, 15 in competitiveness, while continuing to grant a reduced recharge for unused weapons. This will allow players to still get a small recharge reduction when using a single weapon without the downside of an excessive recharge time when utilizing. Finally, Shroud has been renamed Radiant Forge. So this to me, and right here, I'm going to be completely blunt. This is not enough changes to make Luminary a good elite specialization. It's still lacking. They didn't address any of the actual Radiant Forge abilities. They didn't at all address visually, again, like the lantern that we have, why is it there? They're not using that. Again, I talked about the visuals. There's no visual changes there. They didn't talk about specific changes to the abilities themselves that are super lackluster when you're using Radiant Forge, right? How, you know, useless some of them are when you have a specific build, right? If I'm doing a damage build, I will never use staff. What's the point of me having that on my Radiant Forge, right? The idea that I had was completely different, where it's like you can select which weapon you want to have in your Radiant Forge, but they didn't at all do any of that. They reduced the cooldown of Radiant Forge. They renamed it, and then they're just adding a couple things to the virtues. To me, I'm gonna be blunt and honest, this is not what was promised, because they said if there's feedback on a lot of the changes that needed to be made on an elite specialization, they said that is worrisome and they have to look at that and they have to redo all of that and blah blah blah, and they didn't do that. They didn't even go into the traits. They didn't talk about the traits. Like, what, there's so many things. People talked about the luminary, or the, what's it called, the radiant, what's the aura, the radiant aura or whatever, the light aura, that's what it was. Jesus, I have like all these light themed names in my head, like Radiant and whatever, right? No, the light auras, right? We talked about how like that would be really, really cool to have this luminary be built around being an auramancer, but it's just a light auramancer, right? Like a light aura, and you do a bunch of things with that, right? Like that would be really interesting. So many of the trades too felt really boring to me. A lot of them were virtue focused again, which is like, you have this whole Radiant Forge thing and you're not utilizing that, right? You're not utilizing that. I think that 90% of the trades should be around Radiant Forge because that is the main mechanic of the Luminary. And I get you want to have some virtue stuff here and there, but it seemed like there was a, like when we look at something like that, you know, when we look at the Luminary, I feel like a lot of the traits were like based on, you know, virtue skills. This is such a boring trade. Grant boons to nearby allies when you use a virtue skill. Like, that's so boring to me, right? Like, to me, that doesn't really do that much. Gain a light aura when you use a healing skill is great because I wanted them to build off of the light aura, right? Like, luminary skills detonate light aura. Like, I love the idea of Sovereign of Light and just doing more with it, right? I'm disappointed in that. That feedback right here doesn't sound like Luminary is going to be that interesting. And I'm going to be honest with you, if I compare it to other elite specializations that the Guardian has, this is not that interesting to me. I don't think that those changes, specifically what they've outlined, obviously there's going to be other changes, but from the details they've given here on this little bit, I don't think that that is enough to make Luminary a really interesting elite specialization or even competitive with the other ones, right? Like, I personally don't think so. What do you guys think? Is this like something where you're like, okay, this is all the changes I wanted for Luminary, boom, I'm on board with it. This is going to be the best thing ever. Because I still think of they said that you know, the low impact of the weapons themselves are the main issue we're addressing, but then they don't address it anywhere, right? Like, it's not at all. Like, here they just talked about the recharge time, and this entire, like, half of it is just about the recharge time, and the other part is about the virtues. So, I don't know. It sounds really disappointing. I don't main Guardian. I haven't main Guardian in a long time. I don't think I really ever did. They're changing the icon for it, which I guess makes sense because that doesn't really represent the elite specialization. But yeah, I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you guys think that these are great changes? For me, obviously they're not. But all right, Paragon. Paragon is going to be super interesting. As you guys know, I've been maining a warrior for a long time. And I've been just kind of playing warrior for Spellbreaker specifically for a long time. And I've been kind of trying to dip into Spectre because, like I said, Spectre was always, the idea of Spectre has always been something that I wanted for a long time. And so I've been trying to get really good with Spectre, and I've been getting pretty decent with it, and I've been playing it a lot, and I've actually been enjoying it for the most part. I still, when I go back to my Spellbreaker, I'm always like, yeah, man, this is just, it feels like home, right? Like, you go in there and you're just like, yeah, because I just played it for so many hours now. And the play style that I have right now is this quick dagger wielding warrior that just goes in and just like does all these things like with quickness and stuff. And I just have like gold explode and whatever, right? Like, I really like that. It was really, really cool. And I've been a big fan of that. But Paragon has been something that, you know, we've been playing Guild Wars 1, and I really like that class in Guild Wars 1, and I never really got into it in Guild Wars 1. I did for a while back in the day, but eventually I switched to Mesmer because Mesmer are just so much more powerful in Guild Wars 1. But you know, now we've been playing Paragon a lot in Guild Wars 1, so I'm really trying to, you know, I want to like this a lot. Paragon feedback was largely focused on a few key areas. Many utility skills lacked impact. Is that true? It wasn't that they lacked impact, it was that they were clunky to use, but sure. Some traits felt a bit plain, and adrenaline was hard to come by. Okay. I guess. I don't know. It didn't really feel like that for me, but we did pass on the utility skills to add some additional value. Brace yourselves. Okay, let's read about brace yourselves. Where is it? Paragon. Brace yourselves is command. Apply barrier to yourself and allies around you. Echo. Apply barrier again to allies and set after a set interval and after you use a burst skill. Okay, so it's just barrier and then barrier again after 3 seconds. Now grants protection to allies while granting bonus adrenaline to Paragon on both activation and echo. Okay, So just full on going ham on that. Doing protection, doing barrier, giving bonus adrenaline. I like it. I'm not against it. I like it. I think that's cool. We shall return. Let's read about we shall return. We shall return as a healing skill. Heal yourself and allies in an area around you. Echo heals again and removes conditions on allies after a set interval or after using a burst skill. We shall return and find their weakness. Also grant some bonus and find their weakness. Sorry guys. Find their weakness. Strike and apply vulnerability to enemies around you. Apply might to allies based on the number of enemies struck after a set interval. I just hate, like, one of the feedbacks that I had was like lowering the interval of echo, but I guess they're not doing that. But it's gonna be interesting to see what's going on down there. But finally, also grant some bonus adrenaline under respective echoes, which we expect to play well with the reverberation trait to fuel the Paragon's chance. Reverberation. Command echoes can trigger a second time. Okay, so we're gonna get like all this adrenaline, like just adrenaline. The thing is, and here's the thing, so it got to a point for me when I was playing Paragon where I had enough adrenaline, but my F1 was constantly on cooldown. So you're going to have to swap weapons too a lot. So there's synergy with swapping weapons because you want to swap into new weapons to use your F1. So the more you swap weapons, because you're getting all this adrenaline, right? So you kind of have build it that way. So that's kind of interesting. It kind of sucks because if you're doing like, I guess like a long range build or something like that, and you're trying to like stay at long range, and then having to swap over because everything is on cooldown right now, swapping over to like a close range weapon, or if you're on a heal, we only have one healing weapon, and if you're like swapping over because you're trying to get the most out of your adrenaline, but your F1 on your staff, the burst skill is on cooldown, but you have like full adrenaline, you want to make use of that. So, and you want to use that because that's how you build motivation up, right? You want to swap with, to your other weapon swap, and then, use your F1 again, right? But what are you swapping to? Another staff? Like that, that doesn't really, I think that the cooldowns carry over, right? So, unless they don't, I don't know how that works, but it kind of sucks because the weapons, specifically healing weapons, we don't have that many for the warriors, so it kind of sucks a little bit. But nonetheless, I think that's adding things to make these commands better is a great idea. I think that still is a good idea. Feverish pulls lack to depth for a Grandmaster trait. Okay, feverish. What is a feverish pulse? Grant boons to allies when transitioning to a different refrain. Okay. It sounds more like a master trait. So we folded in the effects of brisk pacing to give it some additional power. There's also frees up a slot in the master tier for an additional damage focused trait, as we saw a lot of feedback that Paragon's damage potential wasn't quite there yet. Strengthening stanzas moves out of the Grandmaster tier to fill that slot, making room for a new Grandmaster trait. I don't want to look at all of it. I want to look at it all in one go because they're kind of building off of each other here. Making room for a new Grandmaster trait with a bit more active gameplay. This trait will grant bonus damage based on the current motivation tier. The same 1 to 3, 4 to 6, and 7 to 10 thresholds used by chance, rewarding good resource management with a nice damage increase. Okay. Strengthening refrains grant bonus effects to you while they're active, and that gives you damage there, and that's going to be going into brisk pacing. Using a chant reduces the recharge of your other chants by a set amount, so that's going to go into okay, so I kind of like that. I do like that. So what they're doing here is Feverish Pulse is going to have brisk pacing combined with it. Am I getting that correct? I just want to make sure. We folded the effects of brisk to give it additional power. Yeah. So they're bringing in, and see, I like that they're giving us very specific things of how they're moving things around. See, I like those details. So So they're bringing burst pacing in with feverish pulse. So you're gonna, with feverish pulse equipped, you're gonna grant boons to allies when transitioning to a different refrain, but also using a chant reduces the recharge of other chants, meaning that the refrains are the chants, right? Because I hate that they're kind of using chant, like they should just call it chant and just call it chant, not refrain. I know that they were trying to like the burst is the actual activation of them, and the refrain is the continuous thing that happens after the stuff. But so they're kind of like, as you get a lower cooldown on using different chants, and then you give boons out every time you get a new refrain from those chants. So it's this whole, like, it works really well together, and I really really like that. I think that's going to be very powerful for specifically heal based. And then they're moving strengthening stanzas where brisk pacing was. Now, the question is, that opens up that opens up yeah, so that opens up a grandmaster, because they're taking strengthening stanzas and putting it where brisk pacing was, meaning that the damage bonus that you can get from that, so you can enduring refrain, right? You can stack this, right? You gain, so if you want to do damage build, right? So let's think about damage build. So we're doing the chant of action, which is damage focused anyways, right? And chant of action gives you might the whole time, and if you have higher motivation, it gives you also fury. Okay, so you have that, and the refrain effects of chants are stronger. The motivation cost of Riz are reduced. This rate does not affect healing gain from invigorating. Okay, so you gain way more stacks of you gain way more stacks of might. Okay, and so you can combine that with strengthening stanzas in the master tier to get bonus damage and then have all this might. So you have all this might and fury and damage and all this stuff, right? And you can combine that with other things. That's the thing. It gives you the freedom, because those specific traits too, like the enduring refrain, for example, healing increase per level, right? But on top of that, you can still do strengthening stanzas, which incoming damage gets reduced as well, right? So there's a lot of things you can build off of. I like the changes there. I do like the changes. I don't know if this is significant enough. Again, they didn't address the golden wings. They didn't address the 3-second timer on echoes. They didn't address some of these things. So again, a little disappointed, but I do like where they're going with this, because they're making commands more interesting. And the thing with the commands, and we talked about radius as well. The radius needs to be 900, not 600. I said even 1200 could be good. They're increasing commands, what commands do. They're not as boring anymore, but it's also about increasing the visuals, increasing the radius, like those things, and they didn't address that. So I don't know. I'm a little like 50-50 on it. I like where they're headed with some of the changes, but I hate that we're not addressing some of that stuff. Again, nothing about visuals, which was another huge thing, and I think it's something that Elite Specializations should kind of focus on, because I feel like that's one of the main things that kind of sets it apart from the core as well. It's like, because right now Paragon just feels like a Shout Warrior, like a weaker Shout Warrior, and they're trying to make it a more powerful Shout Warrior, but it's like, it's a Paragon. Give me the golden wings. Like, that's what really makes it kind of a Paragon, I feel like. So anyways, what do you guys think of those changes? I'm kind of like, we're at over an hour already, so I'm just kind of get through it. Ritualist. So Ritualist, just to kind of review, my biggest thing was that I hated that the spirits are tugged in with the shroud. I don't think they're changing that. They haven't listened to, like, specifically all the feedback that I've given. They've listened to, like, none of the feedback that I've given, like, at all. So it's whatever. I don't care. Who am I, right? Like, it's fine. But that was my thing, right? It was like the spirits being connected to Shroud, or being based on the Shroud, felt really horrible. And then Lingering Spirits was like a must-have, because that was the only way to really make the spirits interesting to me, and powerful. So I don't know, but that was the biggest thing that I had with it. Ritualist Shroud lacked some impact with a lot of its damage coming from the spirit's auto attacks. We're putting a bit more damage into the Shroud skills themselves and adjusting some cooldowns to give some more incentive to stick around in Shroud for a longer period of time. Summon spirits while bringing a good amount of utility with its teleport and ability to reposition the spirits felt too simple when compared to other iconic 5th Shroud skills. It will still teleport and bring the spirits along with you, but instead of causing them to perform an auto attack, each spirit will now use a new unique skill. Anguish will fire off a quick flurry of projectiles. Wanderlust will launch a larger projectile that dazes nearby enemies, and Preservation will create a protective barrier that destroys enemy projectiles. So they're making the 5 skill in the Shroud more interesting, which is a good change. I like it. So you still teleport them, but now they get another set of skills. So making 5 actually be something that you want to use, because you fire off all these things. It's fine. That's fine. Rupture skill, I like that. It's a good change, but it's, yeah, it is what it is. I don't think that was super necessary to have them gain like a whole new ability, but it's kind of nice to see the spirits become more versatile in the things that they do, right? Rupture skills brought powerful effects, but tearing down spirits was slightly opposed to the core fantasy of summoning and maintaining the spirits. We've rebranded them as innervation skills, Innervate Anguish, to give ritualists the feeling of channeling power through your spirits. The effects are still the same, but using skill no longer destroys the respective spirits. What? So, wasn't the whole point? Rupture Anguish destroys, damaging nearby enemies and granting might to nearby allies. This skill will when the skill when the. So you don't destroy the spirit anymore, but you're now just doing. So you're now just damaging. So you can now use F1, F2, F3, F4 to do different effects. That's so clunky though. It's like, okay. So because. So my problem still with the problem with the rupture skills for me was that they didn't do anything while you weren't in Shroud. Again, this entire ritualist elite specialization depends on you being in Shroud, otherwise you feel completely useless. Like, you can use your weapon skills and stuff like that or whatever, but I really wanted them to focus on being able to do stuff outside of the Shroud. And like, so the rupture, the F2, F3, F4 skills that you're now gaining don't do anything unless you are in Shroud. So you have to maintain your Shroud as much as possible, because otherwise these are useless skills. I hate that. I hate the feeling of having useless skills. Unless these still do something while you're not in Shroud, but I think these are dependent on, like, you couldn't use them unless you had the corresponding spirit out, right? So like, you had to have Anguish out in order to use the F2 skill. You had to have Wanderlust out in order to use the F3 skill. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I'm still not huge on the fantasy. Like I said, having to be in a Shroud to be able to summon a spirit kind of sucks to me. I think they should have done something different there, but that's the changes there. I don't think this really makes me want to play Ritualist. I think this makes me want to play Ritualist a little bit more, and I do want to try it out, and I do want to really get kind of into it, and I'm gonna make a Ritualist and stuff, and I want to play it and see how it is. But these changes are kind of like, okay, they're okay. Like, nothing to write home about it. I think they're okay. But yeah, what do you guys think? Are these good changes to Ritualist? Troubadour. Troubadour, I didn't really have that much on an opinion on. I just wanted them to do more visual things. Again, they didn't change anything visual-wise. They didn't talk about the weapon skills or whatever they were called, the weapon spells or whatever. They didn't talk about that. A lot of people wanted more visually there. They didn't talk about, like, visually changing anything, really. So, whatever. But, yeah, I don't think it needed that much visually anyways, but... I do acknowledge that there were people that talked about those as well, and they didn't address that either. So, Troubadour. Yeah, like I said, for Troubadour, I wanted, like, musical notes to kind of indicate where we're at with our instruments and stuff, and how we can, like, use them and whatever. That was kind of, like, my biggest feedback. I talked about how, like, the tails don't really fit the whole idea, but they're probably not taking those away at all. So, Troubadour is seeing changes across the board after its Beta performance fell a little flat. Reverberating loot is becoming lively loot, sending damaging sound waves toward your enemies while also sending reverberating loot. Perform with your loot, sending out damaging sound waves. The loot will then consume all nodes, continue to play in the background. Okay, sending out damaging. So toward your enemies while also sending healing nodes towards your allies. Okay, that's kind of cool. The harmonious harp is being updated to function as a channel skill, having its healing condensed to give a more impactful feel while also granting distortion at baseline. The harmonious harp. Strum the harp, rejuvenating allies in a burst of healing. The tune reverberates, creating a healing area for a short duration. Okay, so it's now a channel? Isn't that kind of a nerf? Because now you have to channel that. As a channel skill. Now you have to channel that. That kind of, because then it focuses you to using that specific, what do you guys think about that? That seems very interesting, right? Tails in their performance, this allows the Troubadour Harps to be a strong healing tool while the loot can handle smaller amounts of more frequent healing. Okay, that's fine. So they wanted to add more healing. I guess they're hammering home that the Troubadour is a healing spec. So I guess that's fine and all. That's okay. But I'm trying to figure out exactly like what the idea behind healing condensed. So I guess instead of like having the healing be over a duration of time, just be like one large healing, but it's channeled that way. So it's kind of like they're giving it some, they're buffing it a little bit, but nerfing it in the sense that it's a channeled skill now, I guess, something like that. Tails in their performance bonuses are also being adjusted for the healing utility skills. The performance bonus will grant notes for playing their matching instrument, and the abilities themselves will always be at full strength. Okay, so they're changing because you had to play the corresponding instrument, right? F1, F2, F3, F4 in order to have these be really good. And now they're going to be at full strength all the time. Okay. But they're also granting notes, which is kind of nice. This allows for more innate note generation while also making their usage more flexible. There's a decent amount of trait adjustments, both small and large. The minor traits are being fully reworked. Symphonic Resonance now grants a unique... Okay, Symphonic Resonance. Let's look at that. Symphonic Resonance. Crescendo grants affected allies boons per instrument playing. Okay, what were those boons? Might and Fury per instrument. Okay. So now it does unique boons based on which instruments are playing, such as movement speed with the drum or small pulse healing with the harp. Unique bonus. Okay, so these aren't boons. So they're doing unique bonuses where you get movement speed for the drum or healing with the harp. Okay, I kind of like that. That's a great change. I like that because Crescendo now... So when you use Crescendo, you give out, depending on what instruments you have give like these unique bonuses out. That's kind of cool. Harmonize will now grant a node whenever you use a Phantasm skill to improve note generation. Okay, more note generation is great. Harmonize, gain bonus outgoing healing and damage per instrument playing. And then you gain for each Phantasm skill, gain a note. That's nice. Troubadour is being changed from granting allies alacrity to granting quickness, and will do so with the new master trait, Life of the Party. What is that replacing? Which grants boons to allies affected by your lively, loot, or crescendo skills. We hope that with these changes, the next time you see a Troubadour, it will strike the right chord. Okay, what's with all these puns? They're really trying to like, let's add as many puns as we can in there. It's kind of like, but what is it replacing is the question. So we're now is being changed from granting alacrity. What granted alacrity? Was there something that specifically granted alacrity in the Grandmaster? Because I'm guessing that's what they're replacing. No. Okay. Yeah, so I guess we're adding quickness in there. How do you guys feel about quickness being on the Troubadour? Being changed from alacrity to being a quickness one. It'll be interesting to see how that impacts the game in general. So this is gonna be a quickness healer, like a quickness heal spec for like end game stuff, I'm guessing. I don't know too much about it, but there you go. Yeah. Anyways, so what do you guys think about that? Thank you once again for playing in the beta and for giving us feedback. It is truly invaluable to have a community so committed to helping us shape our game. Be sure to check out our official release notes when Guild Wars 2 Visions of Eternity goes live on October 28th to see all of the changes we're making. And as always, we keep our eyes on the forums and elsewhere for feedback. Until we'll see you in the mists. Yeah, so that's pretty much it, you guys. I don't. What do you guys think about this? Like I said, we've been getting different feedback. So we got a little bit of feedback from the interview, and then we got a little bit of feedback now. What do you guys think, combining both of those, what do you guys think about the things that are being addressed? Do you guys think that this is enough for the release? But like I said, there was a lot of things that I feel like were lacking, but it sounds like, specifically when you look at the Troubadour thing on there, it sounds like that they're making more impactful changes that they haven't really... that they're not addressing in this blog post. I guess they didn't want to make the blog post like 700 pages long by addressing every little change. So there are more changes coming. So yeah, I don't want to drag this on too much longer. We're an hour and 20 minutes in, so I kind of wanted to just, we're gonna wrap this up here. But yeah, what do you guys think of these changes? Are you guys happy for it? Are you guys like there for it? Are you like excited for it? What are some changes that you really wish they would do? Like, because we've had like a month now to kind of think about the beta and the feedbacks and the things and whatever, right? And to really like kind of think about what impact these elite specializations could have on the game. Like, have some of your opinions changed, for example? Do you guys think that there's certain things where you're like, you know what, I had this originally thought of, and then like now I'm kind of thinking of like something else, So as we're getting closer to the release, I'm hoping that I can get some more videos out to you guys about Visions of Eternity, and like, we're less than 2 weeks away, and I feel like ArenaNet isn't really hyping up the community too much. So I'm going to try to do my best to make some more videos for you guys, to talk some more about it. I think I'm going to kind of, I'm going to kind of see... The reason why I didn't talk about the Inquest today or like address any of that stuff is because I'm trying to see where they're going with these teasers that they're doing. I don't know if they're doing like another blog post, like, they don't have to do it always on Wednesdays, the blog post. I guess they could do another blog post on like tomorrow or Friday or something. So maybe we're going to get more. I don't know, right? So I'm kind of holding off until then. But I think I'm going to do another round of little speculations and theories, maybe. I have like kind of... There's a couple of things that I've kind of thought about that have popped up in the community now that, those types of things. To kind of think about what, now that we kind of know where like Castor is located, and we were probably going to get more info on the Inquest. And there's also a couple of pictures that I found that initially I didn't see with the initial release that are actually kind of interesting. There's some interesting stuff, and there's some stuff that I've been talking about with some other partners as well, where we kind of theorized a little bit on some other things. So I might make another theory video that might happen next week or something. So kind of look out for that. Like I said, it kind of depends on what we're doing the rest of the week. If ArenaNet is kind of addressing the Inquest situation, are we going to get another blog post tomorrow? Are we going to get a blog post on Friday, maybe about the Inquest? Because if we're doing that, then I might hold off on this theory thing until next week. So you're probably, if we're not getting anything until next week, until the blog post next week, we're probably going to get one final blog post on Wednesday for sure, right? So if we're not getting anything until then, I'll probably, and no promises made, but I'm thinking about making another theory speculation video for Monday. So there's a couple of other things. It's going to kind of dip into some of the stuff we talked about, but there's going to be some interesting things that have kind of popped up over the last few days internally with the Discord and with me privately, like talking to other people that I kind of wanted to talk about. So I hope you guys are excited for that. Again, if you want to support the channel, I would really, really appreciate it. So all the links are down below. If you have never played Guild Wars 2, there's a free-to-play link down below that really helps me out. The free-to-play is the base game. All the way to max level is completely free, and if you use my link, that helps me out a ton. Also, if you're looking to get the expansions, there's another link down below, both of which are sponsored by ArenaNet, that help me out a ton. It brings you to the buy page, and I know a lot of people kind of get confused because it doesn't bring you to like, oh, it's a Raleigh's Guild Wars 2 page. That's not how that works, right? It's like you use the link and it tells the system that you came to the buy page of Guild Wars 2 using my link, meaning that I get credit for whoever is buying an expansion using that link. So if you guys want to support that, memberships are available. Again, I'm trying to grow memberships. Then also the there's a tip page. There is a merch store, like all these things. I'm thinking I have other ideas for merch stores for the merch store as well. And yeah, so let me know what you guys think, and I will see you guys next time. All right, bye guys.